Okay, so that's the making faces of the head, both cleaned up. New head gasket here, with 3 holes. Take this up and place that on as such. I've got my 3-hole marking at the back right hand side there as per the manual, and then next up is I need to lift the cylinder block on. So one last check, make sure everything looks okay, all the holes line up as they should. You can use dowel for support. The head's pretty light, so I've not bothered. Just take a quick check around, make sure it's sat equal gap all the way around, and then you can start off with the tightening of the holes. Got 2 dowels, make sure they're located as well. And then, as mentioned previously, I'm just going to take this. It must be the worst oil can you could get. But we have M10, I believe, for the bolts here. I'm not necessarily going to put all these in the tightening sequence, just get them in first. A bit of oil on them. As I said before, you don't want too much oil. There's just the right amount to have. Start them all off by hand, just to make sure you're not cross threads or anything. You're biting. And that the gasket hasn't moved, then it's restricting you from being able to get down in it to tighten them. Okay, so that's the ball hand tight. Get the torque wrench out now. I believe we're looking at 40 Newton meters first, then 60 degrees on the thread, and another 60 degrees. Yeah, I've just been double checked the torque values that I got with the cylinder head is the same as what's in the manual, or the tightening order, should I say. So I'll keep this close to hand, very important I get this right. So inside here is number 1. torquing up, really you just want to be using one hand. You don't have a hand here because that can give a false reading on your torque. Okay guys, we just torqued it all down to 40. I've also got this thermistor housing to fit. In the manual it says to fit it first. I thought I'd be able to do it afterwards. Upon looking again, there's not quite enough clearance to get the bolts through. Because I only torqued down to 40, I'm just going to lift the head off again, fit this, and I also realised I forgot one spacer, if you like, joins these two up. So I'll get them fitted and we'll join back up when we're back in this stage properly. Okay, so that's me. I've refitted the water, the thermostat housing on there. Could have edited that out, but I just wanted to show that, you know, everyone makes mistakes, and I should have checked really before I did the initial tightening. But I've gone through, tightened them all back up to 40 as we were before. This is number 18 here. This is the last one I did. And that's, you got your 40 Newton meters. And then this is where I think there's a bit of ambiguity in the manual, because it says tighten them all to 40 and then move them on 60 and then another 60. But when I tighten these ones down and then I pull the rest down, these ones here will be a little bit less than 40, and with other engine manufacturers, Caterpillar for example, they will state that you need to go through them again to retighten them. When this would have been tightened on the assembly line, would have had DC tooling, which would have been essentially 18 different sockets that would have come down, tightened it all down equally, and yeah, to make sure it's tightened down equally, I'd say go through them all again in the same sequence, and I'm pretty sure the first few that we tightened up will move on a bit. So back to number 1 here, and there you go, you can see a little bit of a turn on there. Number 2, up to number 3. So 3 now, that was okay, no movement on that. No movement there. I'm pretty sure going through the rest of these, that one's got a little bit there. The first ones will have the most movement, and then as we get closer out to the outside, there'll be less and less. Number 9, 10. I'm pretty confident now I'm not going to see anything else move. 11, 12 is out here. 13 here. That one's a bit loose as well. That's on the bracket I've just painted, so it could be that there's been a bit of a relaxation in the torque due to the paint compressing. So good job I've rechecked them ones as well. 14 out here. As you can see, I've painted the cylinder head as well, so you can get some paint relaxation on that if you've also painted your head. This one should be okay. 15, 16, 17, and 18. So there we are now. Ready to mark them all up. I'll just take the tension off the spring before I forget to do it. And so I'm going to mark all these bolts facing forward, so I can go through them then and check which ones have been tightened and which ones have not. So and then to move them on, we'll use this angle gauge. You've probably seen how they work before. I'm going to get the socket on there. I'll put one of the rock shaft, or probably all the rock shaft bolts in to help, and then I'm going to wedge. Ideally, you want to be wedging this end against the bolt, and then as you move, you can click off your 60 degrees. if I was to use this and have it, let's say, inside here, there's the risk that if this isn't tight enough, especially with a high torque, that this is going to turn its way up and you're going to lose your reading. So I was just going with this one. I'm hoping I can reach all the bolts. If not, I'll get an old welding rod, I think 3.2, knock the flux off it and feed that through instead. But yeah, so I'll get this set up and I'll join back up. Okay, now so as you can see, I've put all the rock shaft bolts in, help me secure the pin. I've got the pin lined up, it's not going to twist or move. So first thing you want to do, turn your gauge, go on to 0 degrees, as such. And then I'm going to use the breaker bar. Yes. Double check everything. And then when I end up, I'm going to be looking down 60 degrees, so start to tighten. $40, $50. And there's 60. So I'll take this off, take a quick look at our paint mark, looks at about 60 degrees, happy with that. So I'm going to go through them all, do 6 degrees in the tightening sequence once, 6 degree again, going to take some time. I don't think it's going to be that interesting to watch, so we'll pick up once we're all tight. Okay, so there we are, I've tightened them all up 120 degrees. Our biggest job was just stopping the engine stand itself from moving. Just wanted to slide on the floor. But yeah, once we overcame that, pretty simple. What I'm going to do now is just mark these off to the cylinder head, so if one of them does start to slacken during operation, you can see it. Obviously the ones inside the rocker case you can't, but the external bolts you can be able to see. Another quick thing to add is I know a lot of you won't have a welding rod. I actually had a sold screwdriver which fit through, and I used that. And the 2 smaller bolts here, I didn't actually use them, it was just the 3 big ones, or alternatively you can use the thermostat housing to hold your gauge. But next up then, we'll put the valve caps back on top, refit our push rods, get the rocker arms back on, and then fit the rocker cover lid. But I think I'm going to save that for another video. I think this one's gone on quite a while now. So yeah, I'll see you in a bit.